Hello, lover. You've just entered a portal of pleasure, power, and deep, unapologetic sensuality. This is Talk Tantra to Me, where we liberate your authentic self, reclaim the wisdom of the body, and let pleasure lead the way. I'm your guide, Leola, tantrika, pleasure priestess, best-selling author of Sacred Sex Ed, and devoted student of the erotic mysteries. I'm here to strip away shame and awaken your most radiant, sacred, and sensual self. Get in, babe. We're conspiring for your most pleasurable life and seducing the world into a greater good. So, take a deep breath with a vocal exhale, relax that delicious body of yours, and let's talk Tantra. I see you, sister, already so spiritual, deeply devoted to your path, but something in you knows there's more. You've meditated, manifested, maybe even danced under the full moon, but have you fully felt the power of your unapologetic pleasure and sensuality? Have you allowed your body to become your greatest teacher? Have you stepped into leadership in love? The Pleasure Priestess Initiation is your next step, a full year of deep sisterhood where we do life and love together, online, in ritual, month after month, and in the flesh for a juicy in-person immersion. We'll explore powerful Tantra practices that you can take home and adapt, whether for your beloved, your sisters, or even for your own community. Plus, we'll have amazing guest sexperts, medicine women, and other powerful priestesses already walking the path, coming to share their expertise with you, as well as group masterminds, an electric WhatsApp chat, and high-level support as you step into your fullest expression. The initiation is open for enrollment now to start at the end of October, but as soon as you join, you get access to the vault of over 70 hours of previous Tantra trainings, resources, and the vault of our past guest teachers. This is more than a program. It's an initiation into your power, into your pleasure, into the woman you know you came here to be. Are you ready to awaken the pleasure priestess within? Click the link in the show notes to claim your seat in the temple, or visit us at www.talktantratome.com/pleasure. Hello, lovers. I am so excited to bring you another spicy, juicy, sweet little episode. This one, we're going to be talking about the secret to lasting love and the 3 mistakes that I see smart women make again and again in the relationship, and how that ultimately sabotages their deepest desire to be in a deeply fulfilling relationship, particularly with a man. A lot of what I'm going to be teaching about today is more based on heteronormative relationships. However, it's my belief that we all have an inner masculine and an inner feminine. And a lot of Tantra is about balancing these. So you might even see yourself, as I'm describing these different dynamics that play out, you might even see yourself as a female in relationship to a man, resonating more with the masculine in this case, and vice versa. This is also applicable to same-sex relationships, but what we generally see in same-sex relationships is that one person takes on the more feminine archetype and role, and another takes the more masculine archetype and role. But there's no right, wrong, good or bad in terms of gender identification and relationship structure and format. In my opinion, it all comes down to what's working for you. But I am a straight heteronormative woman who has had pretty much exclusively heteronormative relationships. So that's the lens that we're going to go at, because I don't want to speak to something I don't know or haven't personally experienced. And I have not experienced relationships with someone that was not a heteronormative man. So that's my little caveat here at the beginning. But the secret to lasting love is to be his priestess, not his coach, not his mother, and definitely not a martyr. The number one secret to lasting love is to be his priestess. And we're going to talk about what that looks like throughout the relationships and throughout this episode. And we're also going to be talking about how I see the mistakes that I see smart women make again and again in relationship and how to stop it. And I'm going to, lay it all out here. I am one of these smart women that makes and has made a lot of relationship mistakes. And the common mistakes that I see women make, I don't even think I'm done with them, y'all. Like, I'm not perfect. I'm a human. I know what it means to be in my priestess. And sometimes I slip into being a whiny little princess. It's okay. It happens to the best of us. But I just want to share really vulnerably that this is a journey, and a lot of it is unlearning what we've learned about being feminine. A lot of what we've learned about being feminine is to martyr ourselves, to put ourselves last, to people please. A lot of what we've learned about femininity, especially in this most recent wave of feminism that started, I don't know, in like the 80s, was about like, women can do anything men can do. And in fact, women can do it better. And being in this energy of, I've got to coach him, I've got to tell him, I've got to control him because he doesn't know. I know what's best. And you might not think that you know what's best, but you probably do. And I'll share a very personal story of that later. But yeah, what was the last point I was going to make about what we've learned in this modern feminism? Yeah, we've learned to just be in this energy of do it all, be it all. And then on top of it, many of us have had relationships with men, whether it started with our earliest relationship with men, like with our father or our brothers, or we've had troubling relationships with men romantically at some point. Oh, you want to come say hi? My little dog is, come on. Okay, let's see how long this lasts. For those watching the video, you can see they're both on my lap now. As soon as one gets attention, the other one wants it too. Yeah, I know, hi. So what happens when we have these early challenging relationships with men, with our father, with our first boyfriends, with our brothers, is that we learn that we can't trust men, that we can't rely on men. And then what we do in relationship is we try to control, we try to take all of the power in the relationship because we equate having that control, having that power to safety. If I call the shots and I'm in charge, then I have more control over the situation, therefore you can't hurt me, which is totally bonkers and not exactly true at all. So with that being said, you're not sabotaging your relationship because you don't care. I want to be very clear that these mistakes, I don't think that women ever make them intentionally or purposefully. I think that 99% of the time, they're doing it from a place of, I want what's best for us and the relationship, and I just don't know how to get that. And I'm doing what I learned. I'm doing what I learned, which is abandoning myself or trying to help you by telling you what I think is best or by punishing you so that you do what I think is best, okay? So you're not sabotaging it because you don't care. You're sabotaging because you're doing what you were taught. You're trying to manage, which is creating this illusion of control, which subconsciously says, I don't trust you. You're trying to mother. You're trying to say, I know best. I'm a woman and I'm connected to my heart and I'm amazing. And I've been told I was amazing since I was a little girl and I'm the best. And I've been told that boys are bad and wrong and flawed. And so I am better. You're great though. I love you. Mama loves you, but I'm the best. Or you might find yourself toning down your authentic self to become more palatable because you've been taught that being your full, divine, feminine, wild, chaotic, silly goose self is something that he can't handle or that he won't love. He can't handle me. He won't love the real me. That's the deep down fear that comes with that energy of toning down your authentic self. So what happens when you sabotage the relationship by doing what you're taught is that you actually lose him. You lose the deeply connective intimacy. Maybe you don't actually end the relationship, but slowly over the years, you grow apart. Whether that growing apart is more like a wall of resentment or it's just like a fuzziness of like, I don't know you anymore. And like, we're kind of just roommates. And the magic disappears because you're trying to fix him and yourself instead of allowing allowing the relationship to naturally initiate you both. So let's dive deeper into each of these mistakes and give you guys some real tangible examples of each of these that might allow you to see yourself in each of these mistakes. And again, I want to reiterate that I have done each of these mistakes at various points in my relationships, and some of them I'm still kind of doing. However, mistake number one, I do feel like I might have mastered or am very close to mastering. So mistake number one, stop shape-shifting and start radiating. Stop shape-shifting. Stop shape-shifting. Stop shape-shifting. Start radiating. There we go, guys. That was not an act. I really could not say all of those together. One more time. Stop shape-shifting. Start radiating. There it is. So your real magic lives in your authenticity, your raw, your radiant, your unfiltered self. Instead of trying to become the perfect woman for him, you get to focus on excavating more of your authentic and highest self. That is not only the best thing that you can do for you, it's not only the best thing that you can do for your relationship, but it's also the best thing that you can do for the world. Because your soul came here with a unique dharma, a unique imprint, a unique soul expression that this world needs. And if you are toning it down to become this perfect wife, perfect mother, perfect boss, perfect coach, perfect whatever, you're very likely abandoning some part of your beautiful, authentic self. If you're trying to be this picture perfect image of what he wants in relationship, what you think that he wants in relationship, then guess what? You are withholding from him the opportunity to initiate him into holding and experiencing and understanding the full range of the feminine and you. Like if you really think that you and him are soulmates, then don't you think that he would want to know and understand all of your soul? And maybe even on the surface, he doesn't want to see it. He doesn't want to see your wild, crazy, witchy shit. But guess what? It's a gift to him. It really, really is a gift for him. It is a gift for him to hold you in all that you are, because that's the ultimate masculine experience, is to be rock solid in the face of all of it. And I'm going to give you a very clear, tangible example of this because this is an ancestral story for me. But I also want to share, the same is true for the world. Like your unique expression of you is there on purpose. I often like to say that like people, there's this spiritual teaching or perspective that you need to go discover your purpose or find your purpose. And I don't buy it, because your purpose is like your gift to the world, right? It's your gift. So why would you need to go and find it? You're coming into the world with it. And just like any gift, your purpose is one that gets to be unwrapped in your lifetime. Your purpose is who you are underneath all of the layers of trauma and conditioning and grief and false stories about yourself that you may have taken on from any number of experiences or ancestrally or whatever. So your unique soul expression, your authentic expression, is your greatest gift to the world. And the more that you allow yourself to explore that, radiate that, experience it for yourself, that's like the best. If you're listening to this and you're not in a relationship, the best tip that I have for magnetizing your long-term life partner, whatever lover that you want, is to become your most authentic self, to just focus on excavating who you are. And I have a whole episode on the podcast about manifesting your life partner. So maybe I'll pull that up for you guys so you can see about that. Okay, so it's actually 2 parts. It's Manifest Your Life Partner, part 1 and part 2. They're both about 40 minutes long, and they're episodes 114 and 115. So if you're interested in hearing about how I manifested my husband, who is such a soul assignment for me, but also such an activator for me and such an initiator for me, which you get flavors of that throughout the podcast. But definitely check out those episodes there if you're wanting to dive deeper into what it takes to manifest your life partner. And one of the things I talk about is my journey to excavating my authentic self so that I could magnetize him. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that here, but from a different lens in a way. So here's my story. My mom, who I love dearly and has given me so many incredible codes about being a woman and about living my most radiant life. And she also had her own trauma, lessons, karma, whatever. And there were things I learned from her that were not so supportive. And they were mostly unconscious, okay? And one of those things was, and I have a whole episode about this actually, I'm remembering, but one of those was that I completely abandoned myself in relationships. And my mom did this over and over and over again. So my mom is in her 4th marriage currently. And I can say that she has broken the curse. I do see her as being her authentic self in this relationship, but it took 3 marriages to get there, 2 baby daddies, and a whole lot of grief and challenge and struggle. And I don't want that for you. I don't want that for me. I don't want that for my daughter. So we're going to give you the codes now. Do not shapeshift. Do not abandon yourself. Become your authentic self. So this is what my mom did. In every relationship that she would get into, she would become the version of herself that she believed that this man would like or appreciate. And the most clear and obvious example for me was with her 3rd husband, who was 11 years younger than her and was just really, how do I put this? He was just kind of an odd bird. And so it was most obvious that she was abandoning herself in that relationship because who she was before she went into that relationship versus after was just obscenely crazy to me. And ultimately, it really drove a wedge between my mother and myself. After this relationship or during this relationship was when my parents went through a custody battle, and basically my mom lost custody of us, it was significantly downgraded. And then I didn't see my mom for 7 years. And a lot of this was because of how challenging and traumatic it was for me to see my mom really abandon herself and bow down to whatever this man wanted. It's my understanding, and I don't know all of the details of all of the things that happened between my mom and this 3rd husband of hers, but it wasn't far into that relationship that he would trash talk my dad in front of us, and then my mom started doing it, and he would talk bad about my stepmom and her skin. And he basically ended up convincing, from my understanding, he ended up convincing my mom to initiate this custody battle. I don't think that this custody battle actually would have happened if he weren't in the picture. So you can see how this is a very extreme example of the negative repercussions of abandoning yourself. But just to paint a picture of some of the more tangible aspects of how she abandoned herself. So yeah, when she got into this relationship, she started to get all these piercings. She started to dye her hair weird colors. they bought a house together, and when they bought the house together, there was meant to be an animal room because he really liked animals, so I was told. And so I was so excited. I wanted to get a bunny rabbit or a bird. Guess what ended up going into that animal room? Bugs. He had a bug collection, live bugs, live buckets. I'm not joking with you. He had buckets of cockroaches. He had those like, I don't know, they're like those like big white gallon buckets that you get at like the Home Depot or the what's it called? Like the construction store. What am I trying to say? He had those big buckets, and he would put paper towels in there because that's what they would eat. That's what these fucking cockroaches would eat. And he had like different cockroaches from all over the world and just like buckets of them. And they would just be trapped in these buckets for like, I don't know how often he went in there and like what he would do. And then they had like, the spiders were like scary as a young girl, but in retrospect, not as weird. I think that the buckets of the cockroaches were just like so crazy. Like, I mean, I don't want to yuck anyone's yum, like all good, but that was not my mom. Like that just was not her. And then guess what? I never got my bunny rabbit or my bird. Like it just became about this man and his bugs. So that's just like a very obvious example. And guess what? Since she's been in that relationship, she's had a normal, like more natural physical appearance. She hasn't had any bug fixations. So I know that it wasn't her. It was her becoming, oh, I want to be cool for this new guy that's giving me attention that I like, that could, you know, be my husband, et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, so anyways, really challenging. So guess what? I started doing this unconsciously. I started doing this where I abandoned my authentic self and became whoever I thought the man I was dating would want me to be or appreciate me to be. So when I was 21, this was actually like my mom wasn't in my life from ages like 13 to 20. So this was very shortly after my mom came back in my life. She was no longer in relationship with this man. And she had done a lot of work on her mental health. And since then, our relationship has gotten better and better over the years. But in that time in my early 20s, I met this guy. He was about 10 years older than me. We met at a bar out in Chicago. That's where I went to college. And he was like so perfect on paper. He had a great job. He had a beautiful condo. He had a nice car. I went and like met his family. They were so sweet, so wholesome, so incredible. He was just like a great guy. And I was like, oh, okay. Like who do I need to be for this man to love me? And the challenging thing is when you're 20 years old, you have like, you know, unless you had a very permissive environment in your youth where there was a lot of invitation to really authentically entertain and explore who you really are, your authentic self. When you're 20, like you just don't know who you are. And I think that that's most people. And I honestly, like, I don't even know if I would say if you were like, I think it's all a spectrum, right? Like in your 20s, you're still becoming regardless of how your upbringing was. But I think that those that had more liberal upbringings, I don't even say liberal, but like there wasn't as much judgment or expectation on who they needed to become. I think that they might be a little bit ahead of the game than those of us that grew up in a more limiting environment. But still, I think when you're 20, you're figuring yourself out is what I'm trying to say. But on top of that, I also had this like baggage, this conditioning, these fears, right? And what I had learned growing up is it's not safe to be my authentic self. To get attention, praise, love, I need to be a good girl. I need to be perfect in these certain ways. And all of the imperfect or bad parts of me, I have to keep behind closed doors and definitely not show the man who is courting me that is really great. So I deeply loved this man. I fell so in love with him. He was such an incredible guy. And I have so much guilt and shame for how I showed up in this relationship because I became exactly what I thought he wanted, and he fell in love with an illusion. He fell in love with a woman that was not me. And what ended up happening is over time, I grew to resent him because I felt like and this was all unconscious, but I felt that I needed to keep up this act. So we were in a relationship for almost a year, and by the end of the relationship, I felt completely suffocated, and he felt completely abandoned himself because I was wanting to distance myself more and more and more. And he's like, where is the woman that I fell in love with? What's going on? And I didn't have the wherewithal or the knowing at that time to be conscious of what I had created in that dynamic. I didn't even know what I did until years later when I really looked at this. And I ran away from that relationship. I moved to Europe. And I remember the day that I left, he said, if you told me to go with you, I would. Oh my God. What a fucking sweetheart. And I was like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I've got to find out who I am. I can't keep up this charade any longer. And I saw him on Facebook recently. He's married. I'm really happy for him. Bless, and all of the energetic love and apologies I'm sending his way. I don't think it's appropriate for me to reach out to him. But anyways, that was 10 years ago, right at the beginning of my, before my Tantra journey. I'd started learning about Tantra just before him. So anyways, that's that story. Yeah, great stuff. So when you abandon yourself like this, not only are you doing yourself a disservice because you're not going to be able to keep it up, you're not going to be able to keep up the shape shifting, it's going to become exhausting, but you're also doing him a disservice as well. And so I want to get into a story about that piece. So obviously in the story that I just gave, you could see how it was a disservice to him because he didn't have all the information to make a conscious decision about whether or not he wanted to continue in the relationship because he just didn't have all the facts or the data about me because I didn't have all the facts or the data about me. But fast forward through the years, I kept dating. And actually, that relationship with that man was my last long relationship until the man that I dated before Andrew, who I also dated for about a year. So I was not in a long-term relationship for about 7 years, and I felt like I was cursed because every man that I dated in those 7 years, it would never last more than 3 months. It was like this 3-month curse. And it was so tough for me because I deeply, deeply, deeply desired long-term partnership. I wanted to find my person. I wanted to find my person when I was fucking 4 years old. As soon as I found consciousness, I was totally like, where's my Prince Charming? But in those 7 years, I was really struggling with the reality of my solo journey. And in retrospect, it was the best thing that could have happened for me because it was in those 7 years that I really figured out who I was. I stepped into my purpose. I blew up my Tantra business. And the reality is that a lot of the men that I was dating in those 7 years could not have handled who I am today in the long term. And so what would have happened is I wouldn't have grown into my most powerful, sovereign, radiant priestess self because I would have been too afraid to embody those parts of myself in those relationships because I knew that the men couldn't go there, couldn't hold me, couldn't handle it. Or maybe they could and I just didn't give them the chance. Or maybe I think that in some of the cases I did. Especially in the second half, which I could share a little bit about that. In the second half of those 7 years, I really did show up as my full, authentic, radiant self. And it really repelled a lot of men because they couldn't handle it. For example, one guy that I fell so in love with, I remember I told him about my sexual assault and I told him that's one of the reasons why I'm doing the work that I do today. And it was literally after that conversation that he ghosted me, which is one of the first episodes of this podcast, actually. If you've ever been ghosted, there's a great podcast episode. Let me find it. I actually love this podcast episode so much. Growing Through Ghosting, episode 11. Baby podcaster vibes. We're now at episode 300 almost. So it's that was almost 5 years ago. That's crazy. So tune into that one if you've been ghosted before. Give me a little bit of grace. I was still figuring it out back then, but the content slaps. The content slaps. So there was a lot of me triggering people. I think that that's a lot of what happened in my last relationship before Andrew. I think that last relationship before Andrew was like my last initiation into my authentic self in relationship, because there were some desires that I had in relationship that weren't being fulfilled by him. And I really tried to fit into the box. And that ended up leading to us just not being able to come into a place where we had a mutual vision of the relationship. So anyways, when I met Andrew though, I was committed to my full, authentic, radiant self. All of it. The sensuality, the intuition, the emotions. Maybe actually Andrew really supported me in exploring even more. But basically, when I met Andrew, I met him at a Tantra workshop. So he knew what I did. And I just want to give you a really tangible example of how being my authentic self has supported Andrew. So he knew what I did. He had been to my website. He even told me that he thought about hiring me, but then decided not to because he thought that if he hired me for tantric bodywork, then he couldn't date me anymore, which isn't entirely true. It just would have needed to be like if you're going to work with me, then there needs to be like a grace period before we open up a different type of container. And it would have been a whole different situation. So I'm happy that he didn't, but he knew what I did. But like, I don't think that he fully understand or wrapped his mind around the depth of intimacy and sexuality and caretaking and holding that I would do with my clients. So we had been dating for like 2 or 3 weeks, and I don't remember exactly how it happened, but we were laying in bed and he was like, can you tell me more about like what happens in a session? And again, he's seen my website, so he's got an idea. But then I like walk him through it and he's like, whoa, that's like a lot. Like that's a lot. Like you're getting, you're with a man, he's naked, maybe you're naked, you're with couples, you're supporting them. Like, is that sex work? Is what's going on? Like, he just didn't really get it, which I think that a lot of people don't really get tantric body work and this body of work entirely until they've fully experienced it. And he was brand new to it. And so as he's hearing this, I can see him sobering to the reality of what it means to be in relationship with someone that is so I don't want to say generous with my sexuality because that's not accurate. I don't share sexual energy with my clients, but I do hold space for deep conversation, and I do intimate tantric body work that involves doing things like de-armoring yonis and supporting men to harness and master their sexual energy. And I support couples in exploring their deepest fantasies and building a bridge between each other to have deeply fulfilling intimacy. And so I could see this really landing in his system, and I could see him thinking, oh shit, like, is this what I really want? Like, is this the relationship for me? Can I handle her? Can I handle this reality? Can I handle this truth? And the truth is that the gifts that I have to bring to the relationship, if any man really allowed themselves to fully open and understand them, there would and has been a whole line of suitors that are ready to date me based on what I know and the value that I can bring to relationships because of my unique work in the world. But I see him kind of thinking about this and like sort of struggling with it. And then inevitably he asks me, do you enjoy what you do? And I was like, yeah, I feel so blessed. It's the best thing in the world. I'm, helping people reintegrate their sexuality and their spirituality and heal and become empowered. And he's like, okay, so you think it's making the world a better place? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. He's like, okay, all right, okay. Okay. So from that point on, he was already enrolled into a shamanic sexuality school that I had suggested he do. So he was already committed to understanding the path. But it really cracked him open and initiated his own journey into his sexuality and his healing and claiming his deepest desires and reclaiming his own ability to use sexuality for healing. A couple months ago, we recorded an episode called Fuck Me Like a Shaman, and that will give you a little insight into our dynamic and how Andrew has stepped into, his inner tantric powers, his pleasure priest powers. And so that episode is episode 190. That's with my husband. So definitely recommend that one if you're curious. But that would not have happened if he weren't in a relationship with me. I'm sorry, it just wouldn't have. So that's one little example. Another little example from our personal life is his sense of style. So I didn't know this at the time in such an explicit way, but more recently, Andrew and I were walking around Paris. We went to Paris kind of on our second honeymoon. Our first honeymoon, we went to this inner child training called Liberation, which I'm going to be having the host of that on the podcast here shortly. But so we did a self-development thing, and so it wasn't really a honeymoon. So we did our real honeymoon to Europe this spring, and we're walking around Paris and we're both wearing these incredibly fabulous outfits that were loud and classy, but very fashionable, very loud. Andrew has this red paisley suit, which sounds ugly, but it's actually so iconic and so dope, and it looks so good on him. And he was expressing to me, I wouldn't have worn stuff like this before we dated. And he said, some of the outfits that you wore in our relationship earlier on, they triggered me. He told me this. He's like, your outfits used to trigger me. And he did, there were a couple outfits that I wore that he told me in the early stages of our relationship, but I didn't realize how much and how it affected how he dressed. And he said, I would have never worn these things if it weren't for seeing you in your authentic style and the permission and how fun it is to match you and how fun it is to shop with you. And what an expression it is of, and these are my words, these ones, but adorning myself, really treating my body like this temple that gets to be decorated with the most finery, right? And having that be an expression of God, if you will. So anyways, that's just another little example. So all that to say, when you abandon yourself to be loved, you both lose. You both lose. If I wouldn't have stepped into my golden shadow of being a tantrika, of being sensual and sexually liberated, my husband wouldn't have ever really had that opportunity to feel and see that. In fact, I probably never would have even met my husband if I hadn't of fully radiated instead of shape-shifting. So you both lose. When you stand rooted in your truth, you both rise. You both rise. You initiate each other. And there's been so many ways that Andrew has done this for me by being his authentic self as well. So don't get me wrong, but I think that it's very, very common, especially for women, to martyr ourselves and to people please and to tone ourselves down because we want to keep the peace, because we want to keep things in ease. But your expression of your authentic self is going to be such magic for the relationship. Yes, it might lead to some conflict in the short term, but in the long term, you're going to be bypassing a lot of potential resentment and you're going to be, sorry, brain fart. You're going to be bypassing a lot of potential resentment and just cloggedness, clogged energy in the relationship. So you have this opportunity to really initiate each other, right? If you believe that this person is your person, then you will be invited to become your more authentic self, and that will inspire him to become his more authentic self. You have to trust and believe that the person that you are saying is your soulmate can handle all of you and your soul and needs it. In fact, it's your duty to bring this online. Otherwise, you're not going to get done everything in the soul contract that you have together in this lifetime. So, and then if that person isn't your person and you do trigger them to the point of leaving or whatever, I get it. The heartbreak sucks, and the fear that you're not going to find another person that's as aligned or more aligned is real. But you get to decide that this is what's going to set each other free. Being your authentic self is the best dating filter. It's the best way to know if you are with the right person or not, because you're not farther from your version of you're never farther from your version of happily ever after than when you're with the wrong person. That's something that Andrew says all the time, which I love. It's so true. You're never farther from your version of happily ever after than when you're with the wrong person. So to be a priestess in relationship is really to rebel against these old rules of relationship that very much squash the feminine empowerment and authentic selves of women. It's to honor your own power. It's to create a relationship that doesn't just survive, but thrives and is evidence of a more loving and equitable world. We want your relationship to be a living testament of what's possible when two fully whole, embodied, authentic people come together. Like, you have no idea the impact that your relationship can have on the world by coming together and being evidence of this new earth intimacy, as I like to say. And again, I want to highlight that this is really a rebellion of sorts. And to drive this home further, I have a little special freebie for you guys that's going to support you in excavating your authentic self. And it's called Sacred Rebel. It's a live Tantra Playshop for women to strip away the rules and experience the thrill of being fully, unapologetically themselves, to radiate orgasmic leadership in your relationship and out in the world, to mend the sisterhood wound and seduce the world into a greater good. So this live play shop is going to be happening on October 8th. So it is a minute away, but I want to plant the seed now because our intention is to have this play shop be free initially, but the closer we get to the date of the play shop, the freebie will go away and will become a invested offer. So we really want to reward those that are all in on reclaiming their inner sacred rebel, their authentic self, by signing up immediately. So who is the Sacred Rebel for? The Sacred Rebel is for women whose lives might look good on paper, but underneath you're aching, you're knowing that there's something more in this full embodied turn on. This is for you if you're done striving for this like arbitrary definition of perfection. You're done trying to be the good wife, the good mother, the good coach, the good boss, the good friend. You're done living by the rules that everyone else has set for you, and you're ready to embody your most magical self and trust that this is the best gift that you can give to the world. Okay? You know that there's something in your bones, that you are here for something bigger. And that's what this is about. It's about being a leader in love, standing as the poster girl for a new wave of feminism in your lineage, in your community, in your partnership, and beyond. And the cool thing about this play shop is that it's different than any other live free event that I've done before, because usually these are a little bit more like teaching style, masterclass. This one is going to be actual ritual. We're going to be doing real embodied work that I usually save for women inside the Pleasure Priestess Initiation or in my in-person workshops or at the Tantra Love Retreat. So we're going to be doing things that are like real, tangible, that you can experience for yourself, but also take back into your relationship. So again, October 8th, all of the details are in the show notes. Let's talk about mistake number 2. We spent a really long time on mistake number 1, so we've got to hurry it up for these last 2. Mistake number 2 is quit coaching and start visioning. When you're in the energy of coaching or managing or telling him what to do in any way, you're subtly telling him, I don't trust you. I know better. I am better. Guess what? You are on the same team. You each bring unique gifts to the table. He can get it done when he feels the value or importance of what you're desiring for him. You subtly telling him what you want or managing or coaching doesn't tell him why it's important. It doesn't feel good to feel like, ugh, like she's bossing me around. But when you are connecting to his heart, to the possibility, there's a much greater invitation for him because you have a unique gift of vision, of connecting to other realities and timelines. You have this incredibly powerful intuition that is naturally incredibly powerful in women and in the feminine. So use it. Instead of getting caught in the day-to-day, think about what's important in the long run. What do you envision in the relationship and in life, and speak to that? Your intuition and big dreams are actually his secret weapon. Happy wife, happy life, right? So when you can connect to your greater vision for yourself in the relationship, your juicy dream life, and share that authentic vision and what it feels like for him, it's going to support him in the long run as well. So instead of telling him what to do, share with him what you see possible for him and for your relationship. Because when you stop micromanaging and instead focus on the vision, he'll probably chase the dream you're holding and inevitably thank you for it. And this is a real thing that has happened in my relationship time and time again. And I want to give you really tangible examples of what that looks like. So coaching energy would be something like, and again, this example comes from my relationship. The dishes in the sink again, like, hey, it's your turn. We have this rule where like I unload it and he loads it. And so as soon as I see that the dishwasher is done, I unload it. Like I'm really good about getting it unloaded right away because I don't want to like have this backlog. Does he feel the same way? No, he's perfectly happy to see the dishes pile up in the sink. And so there has been this energy of like, like, can you not like be a team with me? And like also be like, we agreed, you hate unloading, I hate loading. So we're each going to take the part that we prefer. What's the deal? Where like you have the thing that you want, like what's going on? And so that can tend to be my initial reaction, is this frustration. But after this started happening for like a month in a row, and I was like, hey, load the dishwasher, hey, load the dishwasher, and slowly over time becoming more and more grouchy and more passive aggressive about it, I was like, maybe it's time to switch up my strategy. And so I talked to him about like, hey, like, I really am not enjoying like waking up in the morning and seeing like a dirty kitchen. Like, how does it feel for you? Because he gets up before me. I was like, how is that? And he's like, yeah, it sucks. I was like, I would really love like if every morning we woke up to a fresh, clean kitchen, and maybe at night we had like a little like dance party where we just like spend some time cleaning up the kitchen together, and like then we can go to bed feeling at peace waking up in the next morning, and we can have our morning together sipping coffee instead of you doing the dishes and like, or the dishes piling up for days or whatever. And in this instance, he felt more inspired by the vision I was painting of connection, of ease, of like more clean energy in our home and in how we start the day. And so that's what we started doing. Every night before we got in bed to like watch our shows or have sexy time, we would do like a little speed clean. He would load the dishwasher and I would tidy up like other parts of the house and the living space that had inevitably gotten in disarray from making dinner or just throughout the day. So that's one example. I'll share another example from like a client. So I had this client that her husband partner is quite a provider for her. And she really likes that dynamic overall. And we've also been working with her to step into more purpose in ways that feel aligned for her and bring in more income for herself. But overall, he's the provider in the family. And so they live in an apartment together. She moved into his apartment and she really wants a house. And so for so long, she was complaining to him like, oh, can we not, like we should move. You should buy us a house, like that type of energy. And in the Pleasure Priestess, myself and actually one of the guest teachers coached her on, instead of, complaining and whining and telling him what to do, what would happen if you spoke into what the house means to you? And so we started to uncover that for her, having this house was this like marker of like, we're really a family now. And we made this decision together. And it would heal some of the associations of her own inner child and her own upbringing around family and home. And we also talked about how being in nature was really important to her. And, you know, like, what would it be like if I could like walk outside naked every day, and like how sexy that might be for him. So we're also adding a little bit of seduction in there as well, which we're going to be getting into a little bit deeper here in a moment. But another just great example of speaking to the vision, bringing in his heart so he can feel you instead of just complaining, criticizing, trying to control, trying to tell him what to do. I'll do one final example of this. And again, this is under Quick Coaching, Start Visioning. So I work with a lot of couples, and very often there's like in the dynamics that I work with, there's one partner that feels like they're not having enough intimacy or sex, and the other person is feeling really pressured to show up in a certain way sexually for that other person or partner. And I've seen it both ways. Just recently, I've worked with a couple where the more feminine individual was the one that was feeling pressured and wasn't as like expressed sexually, and the male partner was wanting more intimacy. And I've also worked with the vice versa recently, where the feminine partner was desiring more sex and intimacy, and the more masculine partner was resistant. It was feeling like a chore, an obligation, etc. So in this dynamic, you know, where let's go to the first couple that I talked about, let's go to this last couple that I was talking about. You know, he's feeling pressured to connect, to be intimate, to fulfill her emotional, intimate, sexual, sensual desires. And, you know, he's feeling pressured. So he's coming back defensive and like feeling like I'm not enough. Like she's trying to control how it looks, like what we're going to do. And it's pushing him away even more. But when she took the pressure off the table, which was partially because I came in and was like, hey, let's stop trying to make it look a certain way. Let's stop trying to like push things to happen, and like no expectation. Let's just get naked. Let's have you guys look into each other's eyes. Let's slow things down. Let's take orgasm out of the equation, and let's just see what happens. And that was all that it took for them to come back into a place of cohesion. The more masculine partner messaged me the next day and was like, oh my God, we cuddled all night and I didn't have the urge to push her away from me for the first time in months. Like, can you imagine? It's crazy. It's crazy what is possible. Okay, so that wraps up mistake number 2. Let's get into mistake number 3. Stop punishing and start seducing. So punishing looks like withholding affection or attention or touch, closing the body language, turning away, making him work for it before he gets your affection, passive aggressive remarks, eye rolls, lecturing him, using sex as a bargaining chip. These are all examples of like punishing. Okay. And what happens when you do this repeatedly is it creates a cycle of shame in him. It pushes him away further. It makes him want to fight back. It makes him want to punish you in turn. It makes him want to retreat. It makes him feel like a bad little boy. It's like kind of like a mothering energy. It's reinforcing the walls that you are wanting to dissolve. Like you're thinking like, oh, punishing him is going to make him want to tear down this wall. Nope. Not usually the case, unless he's people pleasing or martyring. And so it's also leading you into this place where you feel like you've got to protect yourself by punishing him, rather than leaning into the possibility of, okay, things aren't great, but can I find a way to build a bridge between us and create pleasure instead of protection? So ironically, many of us have been told as women that our sensuality and seduction is manipulating. But in my opinion, sensuality and seduction can be channeled in positive ways, which I'm going to talk about here. And in my opinion, ironically, punishing is really the manipulation. And it's just driving a wedge in your relationship. Punishing is like this parental energy. Like the only people that really have like legitimacy to punish us as adults are like the law and our parents. And as adults, like they're not really supposed to be punishing us anymore, right? Like generally not. So it really brings this like parental energy, and that's not hot. Like he doesn't want to fuck his mom. And this isn't to say that there shouldn't be very real boundaries and consequences when he fucks up like in a major way, because you are a privilege. Having access to you is a privilege. But most of the time, like he's a human. Like it's much more powerful to say, hey, you're human. You have your own traumas, your own triggers, and that is what it is, but this is what I need, and this is what I expect, and this is how I will be treated in this relationship. Communicating very clearly your boundaries and your needs. The priestess doesn't punish to get her needs met. She seduces. She magnetizes to get what she wants from him and from life, okay? She doesn't manipulate through withdrawal. She magnetizes from a space of curiosity, openness, warmth, presence, embodied invitation. Your sensuality can inspire him to lay down his sword and offer you the world. So we're going to seduce instead of punish. You're going to be connected to your compassion, your gratitude, and your respect, because that's going to get you so much farther. And I want to put here, men are just as much victims of capitalism and patriarchy as you are. He was told to be a man far too young and not really taught how. Like how many men had legitimately good, positive, masculine role models? Not many, okay? So meet his vulnerability with compassion and grace and turn on. When he's lost in his head, when he's lashing out, there might be a possibility to seduce him back to his heart and use your presence and your pleasure to soften him. So I'll give a really good example. We got this from our very first couples therapist. When Andrew gets spicy with me, it's like, oh, you're triggered, or like something's up. Like you're like, I can tell, like it tends to be like he's triggered because of something I did or said, or he feels disrespected because of something I did or said, or he's stressed out about work and his capacity is just really low. And we all have these moments. So he'll start to get a little spicy with me. And my normal reaction would be probably to lash out and to then feed into his spice and get spicy back and punish him right back. But what I learned to do is say, hey, can I give you a hug? Can I hold you for a second? And so I sit down and I have him come into my arms and I'm just like, hey, what's going on? Like, what's this about? The amount of blow-ups this has solved is insane. It's insane. We're closing the gap. Instead of building a wall energetically, we're closing the gap and bringing in some physical connection. And this isn't about ignoring reality. You're inviting him into a more resource state before tackling whatever is going on with him. Because, hey, it's not cool for him to be spicy with you. It's not cool for him to have an attitude with you like that. That's not how you treat the person that you love. And we're all human, okay? Okay. And this is going to help him get a little bit more resourced. Like, wouldn't you want the same? We've all been there. So seduction here isn't manipulation. It's an art of returning him to his heart so you can meet there as lovers, as teammates, instead of as adversaries or enemies. Okay? Previously, I had a very anxious attachment. And so oftentimes I would want to get the thing resolved right away and start being like, you can't talk to me like that. And what's wrong with you and all of that. And it really came from this place of I felt so insecure in the conflict that I felt like I needed to solve it and tell him what I needed immediately and what was okay and what was not okay immediately. And guess what? He just wasn't available for it because he was still in his trauma response, right? Or in his trigger. So slow things down. It's also okay to be hey, let's just take a break. Because there have also been cases where I'm I don't have the capacity to hold you right now and seduce you into your heart. I need to get into my own heart, calm myself down, love myself, and then I can come back to you and close the gap. So that's also okay. Another example is publicly teasing or belittling him. And I talked about this in an episode of the podcast too. I'm going to see if I can find it. I talked about this, like respecting the masculine, in episode 139, Honoring and Respecting the Masculine with Amy Batuski. Great episode. Highly recommend. I give you all of the tea on all of the shitty things that I've done accidentally in relationships. But this is something that I used to do a lot, like tease or make sarcastic jokes about him in front of our friends, like say like, yeah, just like I'm trying to think of an example. It's been a while since I've done it, but just like, yeah, just like put him down, like, oh, like those shoes that he's wearing, so dorky. Or like, I don't even know if that's like a great example. I haven't done this in such a long time because I learned how to not do it. But there were like multiple times where Andrew would be like, that like didn't feel good. Like you made me like, I want you to like talk me up in front of our friends, not like make jokes about how I missed the turn, for example. So instead, like when you notice something like that, pause, save your feedback for private, and ideally do the feedback in a way that's speaking to the vision of the relationship rather than trying to control or criticize him. And in the moment, look for something to affirm. Like, you know, if it's about driving, like Andrew or my husband or whatever is always so focused on getting us there safely. Because guess what? He missed that turn because he knew that if he tried to turn last minute, I would have been all jostled around and we could have gotten into an accident. Okay? So find the way to be gratitude or to affirm or to look for, you know, like an opportunity to compliment him, because that's seduction in a way too, right? Words of affirmation, complimenting. Instead of being in the energy of like around the house, maybe we'll go back to the dish example. Maybe Andrew is finally doing the dishes or your partner's finally doing the dishes. It could be like, oh, thanks for finally doing that, you know, or being in the energy of like, I guess I'll just do this myself because it's been days like this. Instead, when he does do the dishes, meet him with gratitude, meet him with your sensuality, meet him with your body, meet him physically with your appreciation. Like, what would it look like if you came up behind him and whispered in his ear while he's doing the dishes, how watching him with his sleeves rolled up is basically lady porn. Way hot. Like you're like positively reaffirming him doing the thing that you want him to do by associating it with your sexuality. It's seductive, but it's seducing him into a greater good, right? So all this to say, being his priestess is the way to do it. Don't be his mother. Don't be his martyr. Don't be his coach. Be his priestess. And to be a priestess is, again, to rebel against the rules, to honor your own power and create a relationship that doesn't just survive, it thrives. And we're coming to a close here, and I want to bring forth this and just kind of hammer in, we're done talking about the 3 mistakes, but you don't create a sacred union by managing him, by mothering him, by martyring martyring yourself, actually. Blah. You create it by becoming the woman whose presence calls her man into greatness. By becoming a priestess whose pleasure and fire and devotion sets the standard for everything that happens in the relationship. By becoming the sanctuary he didn't even know he was looking for. And if you're ready to create that type of relationship, one that feels like the most divine thing you've ever experienced, then Pleasure Priestess is for you. This is my year-long tantric mystery school for women to be initiated into the sacred art of orgasmic leadership, to reclaim your dark feminine gifts, heal the sisterhood wound, and seduce the world into a greater good. This is an initiation that is online and in person. We meet several times a month. We have a vibey WhatsApp chat, and we also have a 2-day in-person initiation. You also often get discounted or free tickets to my other in-person events as well. But this is for women like you that are ready to activate your full power by integrating your sensuality, your sexuality, and your spirituality into one aligned and unstoppable force. This is for you if you're ready to honor the divine masculine, not from depletion, but from delicious overflow, the kind that draws in lovers who will assemble your IKEA furniture and go down on you even on your period. That's a real result from a woman in the Pleasure Priestess. Once she started doing this work, she went on a date. The guy, like she was dating a bunch of guys that were ghosting her, and now she's dating guys that are building her IKEA furniture and going down on her even on her period. This is for you if you're ready to stop hiding behind your journal and take up literal space in a circle of women who will cheer you on mid-striptease one moment and then hold you as you confess something you've never dared to admit, not even to yourself, without a hint of judgment. And we see so much of that happening in our Pleasure Priestess WhatsApp chat and on our live calls, talking about the real, raw reality of being in devotional partnership. The things that you can't just talk to your girlfriends about because they're not going to get it. They're going to start hating your man. The things that you don't want to talk to your therapist about because it's awkward or weird, or they don't get it because they're not sexually liberated either. Okay, this is the space to bring it. Women are the leaders of love in this revolution. We are the temples, and the Pleasure Priestess is the path forward. We are enrolling now for the fall cohort, and we begin at the end of October. I hope to see you inside. All of the information to join this incredible initiation is in the show notes. So with that being said, thank you for opening yourself up to this sacred and sexy conversation. I'll catch you next time on Talk Tantra to Me. Ta-ta. Over the years, I've been approached by many pleasure-based companies to promote their products, but I've only ever said yes to one person because I genuinely love these products so much, as well as the woman behind them. Wands, spelled W-A-A-N-D-S, is a crystal pleasure toy company, and they have been a part of my Tantra journey since the beginning. And they're not just toys, they're truly activators and beautiful sacred pieces of art that foster deep self-connection, pleasure, and transformation. These 100% pure crystal wands and yoni eggs help you unlock your body's wisdom, clear energy blockages, and amplify your pleasure, whether alone or with a partner. And it's not just about the products. For me, it's about the heart and the soul behind them. And the owner, Courtney, I absolutely adore her. She's been so generous to offer you, my beloved listeners, an exclusive 15% off with the code Leola, L-E-O-L-A. So if you're ready to honor your sacred sexuality and awaken your sensual energy, stepping into a pleasure-filled life, head to wands.com. Again, W-A-A-N-D-S, 2 A's, and use code Leola for 15% off. And you can always find the link directly in the show notes. Trust me, you're going to thank me later.